Hello all, welcome back from spring break. I hope you had some time to rest and relax and maybe not go somewhere but find some quiet time at home. These notes today are about weather and climate. So the last one was about just kind of the atmosphere in general, relative humidity, things like that. This is more specific to what the clouds are doing, what the weather is in this area. So starting off here, some basics. Weather, it's the conditions of the atmosphere at a particular time and place. So it's right now, I'm looking outside and it looks like it's kind of cloudy. It looks like there could be a storm coming. So right around Bellflower, California, it's cloudy, possibly raining soon. So it's what's happening right now or what's happening tomorrow here in Bellflower or wherever you're living. So it's much more specific and it's for a much more shorter time period, just what's right now or what's the next day or two. As opposed to climate, it's the long-term average. So here in Bellflower, California, we live in a desert climate. Now it might rain tomorrow, it might be warm, it might be cold, whatever, but overall we live in a desert climate. So it's the long-term average. This is over many, many, many years, many, many, many averages, many data points collected. What is the climate for that area? The ocean influences the Earth's weather and climate pattern. Now this is awesome. This is why California is so nice. So even kind of, let me find the pen here. Looking at this map, I realize it's not super big, but California is right here. California isn't super duper south compared to other things. My brother lives right over here in Virginia, and they get snow in the winter, whereas we do not get snow. So just kind of keep that in mind, how same latitude, same distance from the equator, but remember how my brother here in Virginia gets snow, whereas we don't. And it stays pretty nice year round. Talking about the breeze here is because of land heating up warmer than or faster than the water does. So during the day, so looking at this top one here, sea breeze, the air over the land here warms up quicker. That air rises, warm air rises. Cool air from the ocean blows in to take its place. It's not just going to not have air there. Eventually this air over here sinks, the cool air, and it goes in a circle here. So during the daytime, the breeze comes in from the ocean, from the water. At nighttime, it's the opposite. The water has taken a lot longer to cool off. It took a lot longer to heat up, and it's taken a lot longer to cool off. As it's cooling off, it's giving off warmer air. The cool air from the land is going over to take its place, and it's going in a cycle this way. So it's going the opposite way at nighttime, and it's just because land heats up and cools off faster than the water does. Think of this too, like if you have a swimming pool in your yard, or if you've ever been to a swimming pool, the sidewalk around the pool or the stones, whatever you've got, it heats up pretty quickly, and then at night it might feel warmer, but it cools off pretty quickly. Whereas the pool, it takes a lot longer, even a few days to heat up, but then it takes a lot longer to cool off too. So land warms up and cools off quicker than the water does. The water takes longer to warm up, but it keeps the heat longer. It takes longer for it to release it too. So like I said, the sea breeze is from the ocean to the land, or the lake to the land. Land breeze is from the land to the ocean, or from the land to the lake, whatever the body of water is. Something that also influences the weather, there's these really large air masses. So when I says large volumes of air, we're talking like they cover states. Okay, so the maritime tropical air masses here. So this is something, I'm looking at California, it covers or goes into this whole area. The continental tropical air masses. This is something that covers like states. So really large volumes of air, they have distinct properties. They could have a lot of moisture in them. They could be really dry. They could be hot. They could be cold. But distinct properties, and that's how it influences the weather. And then a storm it's a disturbance in this weather. Two air masses meeting, maybe. Generally, that's when a cold air mass meets a warm air mass. We generally have a storm. So there's disturbances here. There's a change in pressure, change in temperature, warm air rising, water condensing, all of that stuff all going on at once. And we get a lot of crazy wind, a lot of precipitation. Could be different types of storms, different amounts of severity, but definitely where these air masses meet is where this happens. So like I said, where these air masses meet, they meet at what's called fronts. So boundaries between the air masses. The air masses are moving. This is what gives us our weather. If you watch the weather on TV, they'll talk about air masses, or they'll talk about areas of low pressure or high pressure. They're really referring to these air masses here too. So if warm air is the one that's moving, since warm air rises, it's less dense, it kind of goes up over the cold air mass. When it goes up over it, it starts to cool a little bit. The water vapor, condenses, and we get these clouds here. Eventually, if they get too much condensation, the water drops, we have rain. All right, but if the warm air is the one moving, it rides up over the cold air. If the cold air is the one moving, this bottom one here, it pushes up the warm air. So it pushes it up. The same thing happens where it goes up, it's forced up, it cools down, it condenses, and when there's condensation, there's rain. Also, all of this air movement is what causes the wind. So if air is being pushed up or pushed out of the way, it's going to have wind. So this is why we get the storms here at the boundaries, because air is being pushed up and forced to move. It's condensing, could be forced into clouds and then rain. Also, too, I'm not sure if California does this so much. We don't get thunderstorms super often, but growing up in the Midwest, we'd have you could almost feel a storm coming. It would feel really hot, really humid. After the storm went through, it would be much cooler and less humid. Well, we'd probably have, this storm here, and then we'd be left with the cool, less humid air. So you can experience this and feel the difference in the air. I wish we had better storms out here in California sometimes, but you'll have to take my word for it. So as I was saying, at these fronts, we typically get storms. This too on the news, they'll talk about an area of low pressure, area of high pressure. That's what's happening at these fronts, and we definitely can get storms. The jet stream, these are the air masses moving from one part of the world to the other. Because the air masses are moving and this jet stream is moving them, it can cause us to have the weather patterns. All right, we're talking about some main types of storms here. Uh-oh, Kai's starting to cry. Just a second. All right, there we go, I'm back. So, hurricanes, enormous, huge storms. This one here, you can kind of see where is that, the Dominican Republic? Sorry, I'm bad at geography. There, this is the tip of Florida. So this is how big this storm is compared to those other areas. So generally about 100 worldwide per year. Some years there's more, some years there's less. Kind of an average. The winds feed water vapor. You could probably say wind fed by water vapor. Sorry about that. It's kind of a weird one. When the water vapor evaporates, it condenses. When it condenses, it releases energy. This is why they generally happen over water. This is why they happen over the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic Ocean closer to the equator. All right, all that water has been warming up. It's evaporating. It condenses into clouds. And then when it condenses, it releases energy. So if this is how big the storm is, the hurricane is, and the area is, that's a lot of water evaporating. That's a lot of water condensing and releasing a lot of energy. So this is why we generally don't get them over the Pacific, is it's just not warm enough. The water doesn't warm up enough to give us this storm system. So it requires, 25 degrees Celsius. That's generally warm water. Going swimming in the Pacific, sometimes it's a little bit warmer, but not nearly as this warm, or it doesn't stay this warm that long. So we need the warm, moist air, and then also the Coriolis effect. This is something where the Earth's spinning, and it deflects the wind to the side. So let me try to draw a picture here. Right here, if this is the Earth from the side, so this is the equator, you know, it's tilted, so it's spinning on its poles. Let me change colors here. The Earth is spinning this way. So looking down on it, it looks like it's spinning. Sorry, I'm trying to visualize this. It will look like it is spinning clockwise, okay? Since it's spinning, anything that would usually go just like that, or would just go up and down if there was no rotation, is being deflected like that. All right, if you try to draw a line on a piece of paper, you know, you can even try this. So if you have a piece of paper, if you try to draw a line from the center out, it's pretty easy. If you have that same piece of paper, have someone spin it and try to draw the line, you'll get a curved line like that. That's what happens to the weather. That's why hurricanes start spinning. Okay, I just realized I have it wrong. I apologize. The Earth is spinning, looking down on it, looking down on the North Pole. It's spinning counterclockwise. Okay, I don't have a globe nearby me here. I wish I had one to spin it, so I'm trying to picture it. But it's spinning counterclockwise, and that's what makes a lot of our weather systems, hurricanes, spin. So this one here, I mean, you can see how big that is compared to, you know, Florida. And it gets incredibly, incredibly strong winds. I mean, these are palm trees being blown over like crazy there. Here's a pictured Hurricane Katrina. So once again, here's Florida. I mean, this is how enormous this system is. So we do have the eye in the middle, but I mean, this is hundreds and thousands of miles wide here. And this is why they can last for a little while too, is if it's only moving, you know, 40, 50 miles an hour, that's how fast the hurricane's moving. It's going to take a while for this whole diameter of hurricane to get over an area. All right, thunderstorms. So lightning and thunder. Lightning is caused by static electricity from the raindrops and air particles rubbing against each other. The release of the positive and negative charges makes a big bolt of lightning. So I have my pen here, still going. The raindrops are falling down. All right. The air particles are going up. As this is happening, they're rubbing against each other. All right. This is releasing static electricity. Okay. It's just like when you rub your feet on the carpet or something and then you touch a doorknob and you get a shock. Same kind of thing. This is just on a much, 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 much bigger scale. All right. So that eventually builds up. It has to release. It goes from, you know, the discharge goes. That's what the lightning that we see. Now, thunder is the sound of the lightning. So thunder and lightning occur at the exact same time. However, light travels much faster than sound, so we see the flash from the lightning, and then we hear the thunder later. So thunder is the sound that lightning makes, but we don't hear them and see them at the same time. If the storm is right above us, you know, they happen closer together. Whereas if the storm is further off, we'll see the lightning, and then it'll take a few seconds for the thunder. So, you know, that's why you count in between, and then you say, oh, it's this many miles away. But it causes the air, when it heats up, it expands, and then once the lightning's done, it contracts back again. Since it's such a dramatic of a expansion and then contraction, it makes that big booming noise. So thunder and lightning, they occur at the exact same time. However, light travels faster than sound. So just kind of some crazy lightning here. Once again, I kind of wish that California had some better thunderstorms. I miss that, but I'm sure you've all heard lightning and thunder, or seen lightning and heard thunder a few times at least. All right, tornadoes. Once again, this is more of a Midwest thing. We don't get these super often here. I think there's been maybe one tornado watch or warning since I've lived here. But so stable updrafts and downdrafts of wind start spinning. So as air is going up, other air is going down. It's unstable, causes there to be changes in pressure, and it eventually, you know, starts spinning. This is different than a hurricane because it's in a much, much, much smaller area. Here, I mean, we can see the fence posts and stuff. We see the tornado as opposed to the hurricane that's covering like 3 states. This has a much narrower path too, maybe up to a mile wide, but usually not even. And it has a really unpredictable path. So I remember growing up with these two, we'd go in the basement and we'd have to ride out the storm. So we'd have our little radio or like our little TV that we could plug in. This, remember, is before the internet. So this was, we would go down in the basement with the family and we were in the basement with the family. But we would wait for it to go over. And the sky would usually have this like really weird kind of greenish yellow color to it. And we would wait for it to go through. Sometimes you could see the tornado. But it might go through a neighborhood and knock down one house, and the house right next to it wouldn't have any damage. You know, it's all just kind of depending where this bottom part would hit and what it would destroy in its path. So they're very destructive. The strong winds can pick things up and they can throw them with a lot of force. So there's always stories during tornado season of, you know, something getting picked up and thrown into something else, or, you know, someone having their house destroyed and then their wedding picture is found in someone's yard like 30 miles away because it was picked up, spun around for a while, and dropped. So depending on the strength of the tornado is kind of how destructive it is, or how deadly it could be. But you don't want to get picked up by a tornado, or you don't want to get hit by something that's been flung around by a tornado. This one here, I remember I want to say it was up in Canada. This guy was totally oblivious to the tornado behind him. He was okay. He is okay. And this storm too, just crazy. Tornadoes, they're also very unpredictable. They don't follow like a nice path, a nice trajectory like a hurricane. You know, they follow kind of a weird path. So you generally know which direction they're going, but you can't map out like, oh, it's going to go 1 mile north and then 2 miles south, and then the path itself is pretty unpredictable. So that's the end of the notes about storms and weather. Hopefully this is making sense. Hopefully things are going well for you. This week there's notes on the first day. I'm not quite sure what kind of lab you're going to be doing. I'm looking for some different labs, but we're a little bit limited by the materials that we have. So keep an eye out for that. And as before, let me know if you have any questions. All right, have a great day.